Wouldn't it be nice to find a properly capable compact SUV? A car that could walk the walk as well as talking the talk. A car like this one, Subaru's 4th generation Forester. Everything about this design seems to be nicely balanced, from the shape and positioning of its unique boxer engines to the shape and positioning of its intended clientele. People who want something fashionable but don't need to make a fashion statement. People who want something tough and rugged but don't need to tackle the Rubicon Trail. So the smarter styling inside and out will go down as well as the symmetrical all-wheel drive system and the X-Mode off-road technology. It's all been very carefully thought out. Some cars command almost unquestioning customer loyalty, and this is one of them, Subaru's Forester. It's a model with a blend of qualities that loyal buyers will tell you they can't really find replicated in quite the same way anywhere else. So just as there are performance sports cars but only one Porsche 911, and there are luxury 4x4s but only one Range Rover, so this car commands a small but unique position as an all-wheel drive stepping stone between 4x4 estate and fully fledged compact SUV ownership. But hold on, isn't that simply a definition for what the modern day market defines as a crossover? Cars like Nissan's Qashqai, Peugeot's 3008 and Mitsubishi's ASX? Well, no, not really. All of these models bring with them the faint feel of style over substance. Nothing wrong with that, of course, if it's what you want. Subaru even satisfies these people with their neatly packaged XV model. But it isn't really foresting territory. You buy this car for what it does, not for what it says about you. Talk to almost any Forester owner and they'll tell you of times when they cruised past other similar vehicles that came unstuck when the going got tough. They'll tell you that nothing ever fell off, that nothing ever went wrong, and that nothing would persuade them to buy anything else. Which would be great for Subaru's UK importers if there were a lot of these kinds of people, but there aren't. Since the original launch of this model way back in 1997, it's remained a small niche choice amongst rural buyers who often still think of it as the kind of car it was in its first 2 generations of life, a kind of rough road estate. That appeal was subtly tweaked in 3rd generation form to create something more Freelander or RAV4-like, an approach further refined by this Mark IV model, a car launched here in the spring of 2013 with more space and technology plus a wider range of engines. And a model in search of a wider, if still very discerning audience. Let's try it. Now, Subaru has founded its reputation on the low centre of gravity offered by a horizontally opposed or boxer style engine layout, where the cylinders lay flat on their sides, the pistons travelling towards each other like the fists of 2 pugilists. It's a unique selling point, and one that you notice every time you use the car and take in the gruffly engine note that's common to pretty much everything the company makes, even the Forester model's torquey flat 4-cam 16-valve diesel. Flat 4, by the way, means exactly that, meaning that the engine layout is flatter and that it can be mounted lower down, improving handling agility and 4-wheel drive road holding, thanks to that ultra-low centre of gravity that just wouldn't be achievable with a conventional engine. Now this, more than anything else, marks out Subaru's unique commitment to all-wheel drive. All of the engines on offer being specially designed to work with the company's renowned symmetrical all-wheel drive system. And this is key to the Forester experience. Most so-called 4-wheel drive rivals don't actually travel in 4-wheel drive for very much of the time, instead using cheaper on-demand setups that only add extra rear-wheel drive traction when it's absolutely necessary to do so. In contrast, the Forester's system is constantly shunting power to all 4 wheels, imparting a much greater feeling of grip and security on surfaces like muddy tracks and light sand. Under the bonnet, all the engines on offer are of 2 litres in capacity, and all very different. Most British buyers will want the 147 PS diesel, which is a willing unit with 350 newton meters of torque, capable of rest to 62 miles an hour in 10.2 seconds, on the way to a top speed of 118 miles an hour. To be frank, it's a better choice than the alternative 150 PS 2-litre petrol unit, an engine that, though returning a pretty near identical set of performance figures, must in reality shift a fully laden Forester with about 40% less pulling power. Still, if your car is likely to lead a slightly easier life, it may just be all you need. Here though, I've opted for the version that aims to broaden the customer base a bit, the pokey 240 PS petrol XT Turbo, capable of rest to 62 miles an hour in just 7.5 seconds, on the way to a top speed of 137 miles an hour, and a derivative that long-time Subaru buyers might expect to be trying to reprise the appeal of early Forester Turbo models with their huge bonnet scoops, big wheels and all-or-nothing performance. Yet, despite its use of the turbocharged version of the engine found in Subaru's BRZ sports car, this is a very different thing, and available only with the Lineartronic CVT automatic gearbox that's optional on normally aspirated petrol models. And it's Lineartronic that you have to get all the key technology developed for this 4th generation Forester range. In fact, so important is the auto option for Subaru that they've developed a specific 4-wheel drive setup to suit it, the active torque split system that divides up power 60-40 front to rear rather than the 50-50 split that you'll find on the manual model. Lineartronic also gives you access to the X mode system, operable by this button here in front of the gear stick. Pressing it activates a hill descent control system, as well as making tweaks to the stability control setup and throttle responsiveness for extra grip and stability in slippery conditions. It's very effective. You'll be surprised, in fact, by just how far you can get on poorly surfaced terrain. The 220mm ground clearance for a start is far better than most of the competition can offer, and it's complemented by useful approach and departure angles of 25 and 26 degrees. I don't want you to get me wrong though, this is no rock crawler. There's no low-range gearbox for that sort of thing for a start. But for muddy tracks, towing or simply getting somewhere icy or muddy, this Subaru will suit many owners just about perfectly. But of course, the terrain you're most likely to be using in your Forester will usually be tarmac covered. Just as well then that in a Lineartronic automatic model at least, you'll be able to set your car up to cope with that too, thanks to the SI Drive or Subaru Intelligent Drive option that's accessed here via this steering wheel switch. Now this gives you the choice of 2 main modes. There's the efficient I for intelligent mode you'll be using most of the time, and the option of an S mode that gives you sharper throttle response and allows you to play with the steering wheel mounted shift pedals across 6 simulated gear ratios. This XT petrol turbo variant adds a 3rd S sharp mode, which gives you up to 8 simulated gear ratios and even sharper throttle response. So, what kind of car is this? A different one certainly from the Forester we first saw back in 1997. That car, like the Mark II model that followed it, was a rugged 4x4 estate. But Subaru already had one of those, the Outback. So in 2008, in the change from 2nd to 3rd generation, this design was repositioned as the kind of RAV4 or Freelander style compact SUV that far more people were buying. You get the impression though that this model's core customer base hasn't quite yet caught on to the fact, hence the way that this 4th generation version takes a further step towards that kind of look. It's a pretty subtle evolution, you have to say. At first glance, after all, this Mark IV version doesn't appear much different to its predecessor, but if you'd owned one of those, you'd notice the changes pretty quickly up close. The smarter hexagonal front grille, deeper and more purposeful in this turbocharged petrol model, is flanked by bold Hawkeye-style headlamps. It's all part of a slightly taller and significantly longer and wider design that features a higher bonnet leading into a muscular shoulder line running the length of the vehicle. There's a sleeker feel too, thanks to a roofline that curves downwards towards the rear into tail lamps positioned to emphasise the body width. Perhaps the most important change, though, is the 25mm of extra wheelbase that brings significantly more cabin room, something you notice particularly here at the rear, where an extra 20mm of cabin width and a lower, flatter central transmission tunnel create a more comfortable space. One that's easier to get in and out of too, thanks to wider door apertures and lower side sills now covered by the door panels to stop dirt from building up and getting your clothing muddy when getting in and out. There's also more room out back in a cargo area that on this top XT model features a power operating tailgate that rises rather slowly to reveal a 505 litre load space that's 12% bigger than before and features all of these useful separated underfloor compartments, including one for the retractable cargo cover. If you need more, then a tug on these side panel mounted pull latches that most models now have reveals a 1,592 litre size space that's now 940mm long and 1,166mm wide. That's big enough to take a mountain bike without having to remove its front wheel. But then you'll probably have approached this car always expecting it to be practical and not particularly inspiring to sit in. After all, a seat at the wheel of any previous generation Forester usually saw you surrounded by acres of dull utilitarian plastic. This Mark IV model had to do better, and to be fair, significant efforts have been made, with higher grade materials used for the dashboard, the centre console and the doors, and particular attention paid to the areas most regularly touched by the driver, the steering wheel, the handbrake and the gear shift. There's nothing here to give Audi designers any sleepless nights, but it's a big step forward for a Forester. And in any case, you'd forgive this car much for its superb all-round cabin visibility and its airy, open feel, emphasised on most models by this huge extended length glass sunroof. Forester pricing sits mainly in the £25,000 to £30,000 bracket, though you can pay up to around £32,000 for one. Unusually, it's the diesel rather than the petrol version that represents the most affordable way into this car, though that's only because the base diesel variant forgoes some of the equipment you'll find on all petrol models. And it's petrol power you have to get yourself the CVT Lineartronic automatic transmission that's a £1,500 option on the 150 PS 2-litre variant and standard on the XT petrol turbo model that I've been driving here. Unlike its competitors, Subaru doesn't offer a two-wheel drive option, so all models get the symmetrical all-wheel drive system that's better engineered than almost anything you'll find on the soft-roading competition. When it comes to competition for this car, well, it's quite conceivable that there will be buyers considering this model as an alternative to a capable four-wheel drive estate or a Qashqai-like crossover, essentially a rugged-looking family hatch. Now, I'm not going to do that here. Subaru already provides products in each of these market niches, the Outback four-wheel drive estate and the XV crossover. Instead, they're targeting this Forester as competition for more capable compact SUVs, notably Land Rover's Freelander, but also more lifestyle-orientated soft-roaders like Toyota's RAV4, Volkswagen's Tiguan and Honda's CR-V. So, how does this car stack up against rivals like these? If you start by considering the diesel Forester, likely to account for the majority of UK sales, you'll find that it's priced pretty similarly to its Freelander, Tiguan and CR-V rivals, but will save you around £1,500 on a comparable Toyota RAV4. In contrast, a petrol-powered Forester is a slightly pricier proposition, priced a couple of thousand above obvious rivals like Volkswagen's Tiguan 1.4 TSI 4Motion and Honda's CR-V 2-litre VTEC. But then you are getting a much more capable vehicle for your money. As for this petrol XT Turbo, well, it seems to have been pitched directly against another Tiguan, the R-Line 2-litre TSI 4Motion DSG, with almost identical pricing, performance and fuel economy. But I know which of the two I'd rather be in if conditions turn really tough. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is a Forester that you really want, then whichever of the all-wheel drive 2-litre boxer engine models you choose, base petrol, diesel or petrol XT Turbo, as I've got here, then you should find your car to be decently equipped. All models get automatic air conditioning, 17-inch alloy wheels, roof rails, front fog lamps, heated electric mirrors, a 4-speaker stereo system with USB and auxiliary audio input jack, Bluetooth phone connectivity and hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. Most variants also feature niceties like automatic auto-leveling HID headlamps, power folding mirrors, auto wipers, cruise control, an 8-way power-adjustable driver's seat and one of the largest electric sliding glass sunroofs in the segment. Most models also get a very high-quality 6-speaker stereo system. It's only the very entry-level variant that gets a 4-speaker setup. Bear in mind that you'll need the Lineartronic auto gearbox for the X-Mode off-road system and the Subaru Intelligent Drive vehicle dynamics setup. As for safety, well, a full 5-star Euro NCAP rating is justified by a kit roster including twin front, side, curtain and knee airbags, as well as all of the usual electronic assistance for traction and braking, along with VDC stability control that also operates the emergency brake assist system. There's also a trailer stability control setup which will interest owners wanting to exercise the usefully broad 2,000 kilogram braked towing limit. Plus there's an energy absorbing brake pedal, front seats with energy absorbing backs, anti-whiplash front head restraints, Isofix child seat fastenings and a pedestrian friendly design for the front bonnet and bumper. Now normally a more capable car is a more expensive one to run. You'd certainly expect that the permanent symmetrical all-wheel drive system of this Forester would exact more of a penalty in terms of fuel consumption and CO2 emissions than the part-time four-wheel drive systems employed by rivals that only introduce all-wheel drive traction when it's absolutely needed and at other times leave the car to trundle around in two-wheel drive. Still, thanks to enhancements on this Forester like active valve control for the exhaust and electric power steering along with low rolling resistance tyres, the figures suggest otherwise. Take the 49.6 miles per gallon combined cycle fuel consumption figure and the 150 grams per kilometre CO2 return posted by the diesel Forester. Now that's almost identical to the readings that you'll get from direct rivals like Volkswagen's Tiguan 2-litre TDI 4Motion, the Toyota RAV4 2.2 D4D all-wheel drive, or the Honda CR-V 2.2i DTEC. And a diesel Forester will take you 4 more miles on every gallon and put out 15 grams per kilometre less of CO2 than the equivalent Land Rover Freelander. Also competitive are the returns posted by petrol Forester models, with the base 150 PS version managing 40.9 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 160 grams per kilometre of CO2. Figures that are much better than those of a comparable petrol Honda CR-V. The Lineartronic automatic model does even better, managing 43.5 miles to the gallon and 150 grams per kilometre. This XT petrol turbo, meanwhile, manages 33.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 197 grams per kilometre of CO2. As you drive, a useful rotating fuel gauge keeps you in touch with how close to your average fuel consumption you're actually getting. What else? Well, insurance groupings range between Group 23 and 34, and you've got the peace of mind of a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Subaru, you sense, has come full circle. Established here as an SUV brand, and now uncompromisingly proud of it. The company's earliest models were sold alongside farm machinery, and beneath the plush polish you get in today's Forester, a bit of that same rugged appeal still remains, creating in this car a much tougher, more solid feeling product than you'll find in compact 4x4 competitors. It's certainly a refreshing alternative to the lifestyle legacy of soft roadingness that has clogged up our cities and school runs, with models about as suited to the Serengeti as a celebrity in the jungle. Yet, crucially, it's now one you could consider as a realistic alternative to more compromised competitors. This Forester is fashionable without being trendy, and built to last, while never feeling utilitarian. In short, it's the kind of car it really ought to be. A vehicle in which four-wheel drive is fundamental rather than simply an optional extra, and as a result, one of the best cars in its class to buy if you really plan on using it to its full potential. True, the result may not be as smoothly cultured as less capable rivals, but when conditions worsen, you won't care about that, and you'll probably be glad that you chose one of these.